What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Zera, and before we get into the video, I just want to remind everybody, if you're under level 15 and you want $10 worth of free stuff, go to your settings, go to use promo code, and type in XMG Gift. You do that, you'll get $10 worth of free stuff. It helps support the channel. So if you're under level 15, make sure you're using that promo code XMG Gift. Enjoy the video. What is going down, my YouTube family? We are back, worst to first. We are getting into the meat of this, the top 20. We are doing 20 through 11. And if you are unsure of how I rank these characters, please go back and watch the first video in this series. That way you understand what I was thinking. We're going to jump into it. Number 20, Patriarchy. And Patriarchy, he's stood the test of time, and he's kind of gotten better with his mini rework. Very, very good plug and play. Take out his leadership because I really don't like it at this point. But what you got to understand about Patriarchy is when applying shield, he heals an ally by 25% of the shield. Allies with full health gain 15% more shield instead. Passive ability, and it is to an ally. Doesn't matter. Really, really plug and play kit. Here, gains a tenacity increase and applies it to 4 allies for 2 turns. Now here, the order gain a tenacity increase and self-control. Self-control is really good. Pandas are really the only ones who can put it on. But even if you take out that order, he's still doing something for the whole team. Here, gives an ally shield equal to 700% of his magic damage. Then he's going to heal them off of that based on his passive, and he's dispelling 2 debuffs. Again, we're seeing Dispeller. Such a clutch kit. He is one of the best plug and play kits in the game. I don't really care for this. Kinley and a random ally gain shield, so you will get the random ally if not paired with Kinley. You're not looking for him to do damage. You try to make him pretty much as fast as you can possibly make this guy and just have him go and go and go. He's one of the most ultimate support characters because he's spreading buffs, healing, giving you back overshield, and dispelling. Patriarchy deserves to be in the top 20, and he's that bottom of the top 20, in my opinion. 19, Zappy. Zappy is one of my favorite dwarves in the game. There's only one other dwarf that I like more than Zappy. Zappy does some things, and she can bring the pain. Man, can she cripple teams. Here, her passive ability, for 1% of charge, she gains crit damage increase. At the end of the turn, charge is less than 50%. She restores 40% turn meter. Huge. Huge. Applies on her critical pirouette, which I upgraded to tier 7. She applies crit damage increase for 2 turns to all allies. Restores 15% charge and an additional 10% charge to Boardroom herself for each dazed enemy. Huge. She can just feed the turn meter. If Zappy's charge reaches 100%, she gets a potency increase for 2 turns. Her kit is so well built. I love her. This move is insane. 330 to all enemies, prolongs armor decrease on enemies for 2 turns, consumes 25% charge. For each 1% charge consumed, she has a 4% chance to inflict daze. If you have 25% charge and you use this, you're only doing the 1 potency tenacity check, so you just make her potency through the roof. I have her at 122 potency. She feeds herself the turn meters, so you don't have to worry as much about speed with this character. Very defined on how you should rune this character to get to maximize her potential. Really simple, really easy. Then on her basic, 330 on her basic. 15% charge. For every 1% charge, the crit chance of this attack is increased by 5%. Landing a critical hit inflicts crit chance decrease for 2 turns. She neuters the other team, can nuke the other team. If you have not built out Zappy, you don't know what you're missing. She is very good. And I know, ask my buddy Bones. He's in love with Zappy too. Really, really good. Easy addition into the top 20 at 19. She can be put into any team. Does not need dwarves to benefit her in the slightest. Dwarves benefit from having her, not the other way around. 18, I have Ember, and I was also considering putting Ember at 19, but the reason I have Ember just a little bit higher, we'll go over here in a minute. When Ember first came out, she was the nuker of the game. She's not really there, and she took a little bit of a nerf, which hurts her viability, but her passive ability here, she gains inner fire. I love this inner fire mechanic for her. It benefits. She gets more from being run with pandas. For every burning removed from the enemy or remained on defeat, she gets another inner fire. Super beneficial. Her Spirit of Zainio used to be a mass dispel, right? Now it's just damage and inflicts burning to all enemies without burning. Removes 9 inner fire stacks. And then she just cranks the damage. The reason she's a little higher for Zappy is this meteor move, because she deals 300 damage, stuns the enemy, removes 3 inner fires, deals 50% more damage, and then removes 1 buff for each inner fire stack removed. So you can take away 3 buffs. Really, really beneficial. That dispel, like I talked about, that makes people go up higher. But she's not only dispelling, she's stunning as well. So huge. Then here, deals 250, removes 1 inner fire stack, and inflicts burning for 2 turns. Really solid. She really benefits from that dispel. I wish she still had her mass dispel, but now the fact that she's putting on burning with her basic and an AoE still cranks out the damage. 18 is probably a good spot for Ember. 17 is Tromgar. And Tromgar's still one of my favorite defenders in the game, if I could talk, because of what he brings. But he isn't, at the end game he kind of falls off. Like late end game he's falling off because you have Titanias, you have the Kiris of the world, and his stun chance is just so low, and we're going to kind of get into that. Passive ability, when in defensive stance, he increases his physical armor by 30%. When in battle stance, physical damage by 30%. I'd like to see a tier 7 here that gives you magic armor increase as well, because he is kind of getting squishier the more damage people deal. Here, Tromgar gains 1 or 2 stacks of regeneration for 2 turns, removes all debuffs, and recovers 10% health. Fantastic taunting mechanism, but what I really like to see here is he recovers more health. He is removing all debuffs on himself, so that is awesome. Another stack of regeneration, or possibly, add in like an armor increase or debuff immunity into this would be so solid. He assumes defensive stance. When using this, he switches again to battle stance. This effect cannot be prevented or removed. Changing Tromgar's stance applies taunt and counterattack. I think I said the other one was a taunting mechanism, so I apologize for that. But the taunt and the counterattack here is fantastic. So maybe here you put the debuff immunity on a tier 7 or a tier 8. Pretty solid. What I really need to see happen here is this stun. He stuns on his basic, so he gets that counterattack. We all know he comes in with the stun. It's got to be way, way higher. Or for each stunned enemy, it goes up or something. He gets potency maybe in his basic for each stun out there, or each debuff on the enemy. Something like that would be really, really cool. But this stun chance has to go up for him to be higher on the list and be more relevant, because it's just too inconsistent in this point in the game where so many debuffs stick all the time. So it pained me to put Tromgar this low. Definitely a top 20 character still, but at the late end game he's really falling off compared to some of these new age tanks defenders that are coming into the game. Staying with the orcs, we have Zera. Without Zera, when you take her leadership into account, she becomes top 10, maybe top 5 in the game. But without that leadership, She's just not as impactful. She does have the Tactician and Rogue, so she can be used. She benefits, being in that leader role, but we can't take that into consideration. Looking at her passive, she increases lifesteal. Lifesteal kind of needs a bump. It's not as effective as you think. Like if you play Raid Shadow Legends, lifesteal is way more impactful in that game, I feel, than it is in this game. If she dodges an attack, she recovers 20% of her turn meter. Well, now that they've removed dodge, that whole caveat is pretty much garbage, in my opinion. She doesn't dodge nearly as much as she used to, so they gotta find a way to fix that. Maybe she needs to give herself a dodge increase somewhere. Here, her Crimson Claws is one of her best abilities. 3-hitter. Each attack deals 230. If the attack hits the shield, it applies an armor decrease. If all 3 attacks hit, it applies bleed for 2 turns and ability block. Super beneficial. Ability block is just massive. Here, her AoE applies a buff immunity if they are bleeding. So again, we're seeing that reverse of the third and the second move. But 60% chance on the heal block is really big. And I know I'm guilty of it. As soon as I start the game, the moves go, I put out the Vortex of Pain. I need to hold off on that, but I never do it. And then here, 70% chance to gain a damage increase. That just she needs to gain a damage increase. Or leave the 70% and then give a 50% chance to get a dodge increase on a tier 7 so that passive ability actually makes sense. She's a decent damage dealer, puts out some really good debuffs, but without that leadership ability, she can't be a top 10 character. But she does fit for the heal immunity, ability block, putting out the bleed. She fits well into a bleed team. So Zera, without that leadership, I think this is a good spot for her. Number 16, Titania, and Titania fits well into this list at 16. Very plug and play. Very annoying to get around if you build her right. I can't seem to build mine right. I try to copy high-end builds on her, and it just doesn't work as well as I'd like it to. But here, increases dodge by each living healer or mage, so it's not just elves. Now, she does get more for elves, but you can plug and play her with a healer and a mage. So you put her with a more doom, you're getting 5%. And maybe I'm not pairing her right, and that's part of my problem. If there is no taunt, she recovers 5% turn meter when an allied healer mage takes damage. That's really big and helpful. Here, removes 1 debuff from herself, allied healers, and mages, so she's dispelling as well, so fantastic. Gains taunt, cheat death, and counterattack for 2 turns. What I'd like to see here on the T7 is more debuffs dispelled. Just if you get the Scythe move from More Doom on her and it actually lands, 1 debuff isn't really doing anything to help you. So I would like to see that increase to 2 or even 3. Here, the Spear Throw, for each living elf in the party, she gives a 20% chance to call in a random elf to assist. T7 here, I would like to see that change to an ally. If the target is bleeding, she applies ability block. Huge. She is the tank on the bleed team that I kind of created, and I love it. She does a really good job with that. Then she inflicts bleeding on her basic and gains a dodge increase. So, we all know Titania, we all know how pesky and annoying she could be. She needs a couple more tweaks with a T7 to really make her into that top 10 in my opinion, because she is dependent on elves, and maybe adding what I said would make her too OP, I don't know. But she is plug and played, she's frankly a B to get around sometimes, and if they ever built right, the match is over. So Titania, where she's at, I think is perfect for her at number 15. 14, Renara. And Renara's kind of fallen down my list a little bit, but she still has a place in the top 20 in my opinion because she is the only person in this game who revives. That is something that can't be taken away from her, right? She can be plug and played. She does benefit definitely more from being with the Pride, but her passive ability at the end of the turn, she restores 15% of max health, 15% of max shield to an ally who has 2 or more stacks of regeneration. All allies with full health gain cheat death for two turns. T7 on her, I'd love to see this 1 stack of regeneration. Even if that's the T8, that would be way more beneficial. Alright, passive healing. Love it. Resurrects a random ally with 50% of their health and applies regeneration for 2 turns. If you don't go T8 on the passive, a T8 here would be 2 random allies. That would be phenomenal. This healing, 400% of her magic damage applies regeneration for 3 turns. Here, I'd like to see a T7 to up the amount of healing, and then maybe applies 2 regenerations for 3 turns. Maybe that would cover the passive caveat, so that would be really good. And her basic to me is kind of blah. Applies regeneration to the ally with the lowest health for 2 turns. T7 here applies it to the 2 allies with the lowest health. Way more beneficial. Regeneration is a tricky thing, and when it works, it's awesome. But if you're a slower team, it really does you no benefit. So more regenerations out there would be better, but the fact that Renara can resurrect, the fact she has a mass heal and implies the regeneration, makes her plug and play. She doesn't need the pride to be beneficial. Really like that. Maybe on her resurrect ability, if they're pride, you get 2 back. That could be something to look at too. Let me know what you think about that, but she needs to be in the top 20. And I think 14 might be a little high, but in my opinion, I don't think so. 13, Shadar. And the reason Shadar is 13 is because the more you playtest this guy, the more teams in theory crafting come off of him. Now, his leadership ability we can't take into account, but I'm not a big fan of it as a whole. But here, increases 10% of his damage for each living demon in the party. Well, if you don't pair him with demons, you lose your passive ability. So that's why he falls out of the top 10 for me. But here, gains an armor decrease and debuff immunity for 2 turns and restores 50% of turn meter to all allies. Feeding turn meter. T7, maybe have him put in, if Radash is on the battlefield, he receives the same buff and like 75% turn meter or 60% turn meter would be a great T7. Here, this ability is awesome. Stuns the target for 1 turn and calls Radash into assist. T7 here, up the damage. Maybe have it be like a 30% chance to stun adjacent enemies as well. Kind of have it be like a earthquake ability. That would be super solid. And then here, inflicts an armor decrease for 2 turns. Also, a tier 7 here, obviously we up the damage a little bit, but again, calls Radash into assist would be awesome. But the fact of the matter is he stuns, gives himself debuff immunity, and just feeds turn meter. He can be put in any team. He's going to make your team go faster. You get this guy fast, you put on potencies to get that stun to stick. He nullifies 1 person and feeds everybody else turn meter. Shadar is just really good, can fit in any comp. That passive ability needs some love. I'd like to see people's passive abilities should at least benefit them regardless of who you put them with. Now, if you want to put the caveat of if there's demons, you get 5 more. So maybe the tier 7 is, he gets, here, he gets 5% more magic damage. Or, he gets a flat 20%, and then he gets 5 more for each living demon in the party. That would be cool. Something like that. But overall, Shadar can just benefit you in so many ways. I love him. And, yeah, that's Shadar for me. 13, I think. Yeah, 13. 12, Salvador. Now, you might be thinking, 12, Zeri, for Salvador? What? Have you read this guy's T7s? Putting this guy at gear 12 with all the T7s makes him damn near unkillable. It makes Pride such a pain in the balls to get around. He is massive. Let's take a look. Tier 7 ability, right? This is what I'm saving my scrolls for right now. Increases physical armor by 35% and additional 10% for each living Pride in the party. So if you don't have Pride, you're still getting 35%. If Salvador has Steel Shell and Taunt, his speed is decreased by 30. He just sits there. With Steel Shell, he's reducing 90% of his damage. Let's get over there. Look at this. Gain Steel Shell and debuff immunity for 2 turns. If you don't have a Dispeller, which is extremely hard to come by in this game, forget it. Unless you got a whole team of AoEers, you're done. You're done. The Steel Shell decreases all damage taken by 90%. He will just sit there. You put 0 speed on this guy. None. Because you put him under a Hera lead. But the reason I got him this high is those T7s. You get Steel Shell and Taunt, right? Even not on a Hera lead, he's still going to sit there. He's still going to sit there. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get there. But still. Amazing. 1 at a time. 480 physical damage. Whatever. He doesn't even have... You'll be lucky if you get him right around 3,100. It's not going to do a lot of damage. But then gains Taunt and Tenacity increase for 2 turns. Crazy. Then on his basic, deals 250 physical damage to an enemy. 70% chance to gain a shield equal to 15% of his max health. I have 2 pieces of gear 11 on him. And I have him at 46,000 health. So doing your basic, I'm recovering 6,000 health. Right? When it turns. This guy's T7s just brings him to a whole nother level. Investing in Salvador to bring from gear 11 to gear 12 and putting those most coveted, very valuable, legendary scrolls on him, it's worth every single penny. I mean, the ones you need are these. These 2 here are the most important. Then his taunting mechanism to get that tenacity increase, I guess. On the basic, you really don't need it. I mean, you can still get 10% back at 40, but if you have it, he's that much harder to get around. He is just so good. You don't want to pair him with people who feed turn meter. If you pair him with Hera, he gets the dodge increase, but he doesn't need that to be one of the best top 2 tanks in the game. But without those tier 7s, he's not as good. And that's why he isn't the best tank in the game to me. But man, so good. Good luck fighting him if they got him gear 12 and everything on him. Speaking of defenders, let's talk about my favorite in Kiri. She's a defender, Dragon Slayer demon, right? She doesn't need tier 7s to be the best in the game. If she has tier 7s, we're going to talk about what I think would be amazing. Passive ability recovers 15% of her turn meter upon taking damage. A counterattack restores shield by 10%. So you put her with someone who can feed them the counterattack like a Kyra. Amazing. Here, on her passive ability, I'd like her to see her recover maybe 20-25% of her turn meter and more of that shield being recovered. Here, you can do better. Gains taunt and an armor increase for 2 turns. Recovers 10% turn meter for each living demon in the party. Okay. Restores shield by 20% of her max health. What I'd like to see here is she recovers 10% of her turn meter. Or 20, right? And then gets caveat for the demons. Also, I'd love to see, or this might even make it be super OP, but a tier 8 give herself debuff immunity would be amazing. Here, deals 240 physical damage to all enemies, recovers health by 50% of the damage dealt. So she's healing herself, has a 50% chance to decrease the target's turn meter by 15%. If the enemy is inflicted by slow, decreases the turn meter 2 times more. I'm okay with this. Up the healing, up the turn meter reduction, easy T7. Deals 260 physical damage, 50% chance to inflict a heal block for 2 turns. If the target has the heal block, puts on bleeding. You know what I'd love to see here? Maybe 15 or a 20% chance to give yourself counterattack. That would be sweet. Amazing. Up the kind of damage, up the chance to inflict, and then give a really low chance, 15% chance to apply counterattack to yourself on a basic would be super, super solid. But Kiri, she can be put with any team and be successful. She does not need demons. Obviously, she plays better with having a couple demons in the party, but she doesn't need them at all. The best defender. Once you get used to that jockeying of the turn meter and you've played with her longer and longer and longer, awesome. She just requires gear 11 in my opinion. No T7s required. Has to be the top defender. So there it is, my YouTube family. We just got through 20, through 11. One more to go, and we're done. So with that being said, if you're just finding me for the first time, you like what you're seeing, click that subscribe button, like the video, share them with your guildmates. Let me know what I did wrong, what I did right, who you agree with, who you don't. I don't respond sometimes because I'm so busy, but I read every single comment that you leave, and I love reading them. With that being said, my XMG family members out there, you know I love you. See you in the next one. I'm out.